Mary, Queen of Scots, was born in 1542. Mary's father, James V of Scotland, died when she was 1. Because of her age and safety, by 1548, Mary was sent to France. While living in France, she married the King of France, Francis II. She was 15 and he was 14. It's pretty young. Young Queen Mary was very intelligent. She could speak French, Latin, Spanish, and some ancient Greek. Mary could also skillfully play the flute. Because of sickness, Francis died 2 years later at the age of 16 in 1560, leaving Mary a widow at the age of 17. Now that she was all grown up, she returned to Scotland as Queen of the Scots in 1561. 4 years later, she married her cousin, Lord Darnley, who was not a people person. He was very unpopular with the people of Scotland, mostly because of his anger. In June 1566, Mary gave birth to a baby boy and called him James, who was to become the King of England when Queen Elizabeth died in 1603. On February 9th, 1567, Mary and Darnley was at a house called Kirk O'Field. Suddenly, and out of nowhere, she remembered that she had to go see some friends and rode off. That night, Kirk O'Field was blown up. Darnley's body was found in the garden of the house, but the explosion did not kill him. He had been strangled. Very suspiciously, only 3 months later, Mary married Lord Bothwell, who hated her now dead husband Darnley. Bothwell was also hated by the Scotland lords, and they rose up against Mary. I guess they came to the conclusion that Darnley's death was a little bit too suspicious, especially after she married his enemy. Bothwell escaped to Europe, where he died an alcoholic. Mary was arrested and held prisoner at Lochleven Castle. She was made to give up the throne and give it to her son, James. Mary later escaped from her prison and she fled to England. You would think she would be safe if her son was king, but oh well. Simply by being in England, Mary represented a threat to Elizabeth, who was the Queen of England, which was her cousin. Now, why would Mary be a threat? Some, with good reason, believe that the marriage between Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, which is Elizabeth's mother and father, had been illegal. And that's because many people certainly did not recognize King Henry's divorce with Queen Catherine of Aragon. Therefore, if the marriage was illegal, Elizabeth was illegitimate and had no right to the throne. If Elizabeth, who is Queen of England at the time, had no right to the throne, the nearest legal heir to the English throne was Mary, Queen of Scots. This was all the supporters and Catholics needed to put Mary onto the throne. Elizabeth's solution was to keep Mary, Queen of the Scots, in prison. For the next 19 years, Mary was kept in various castles and houses. And according to research, Mary never even met Elizabeth during this time. Mary, Queen of Scots, did not help herself though. She made it clear to anybody who would listen that she felt that she should be the Queen of England, and with good reason. In 1570, she received the backing of the Pope, which in that time meant a lot more than it does today. Mary was clearly becoming a major problem for Elizabeth, who knew she had a right to be queen also. In 1586, a man called Anthony Babington devised a plot to kill Elizabeth, rescue Mary, and then see her as the next Queen of England. Babington wrote in code to Mary to explain what he was doing. Walsingham's spies who worked for Elizabeth intercepted those letters. Babington was arrested, tortured, and charged with treason. In September 1586, Babington was executed. Now, the government had a case against Mary because they believed she was part of it. She was put on trial in October 1586. Mary defended herself very well with the judges, but they still found her guilty of treason. To the judges, who would not even listen to her, she bravely said, "You are indeed my enemies." The reply was, "We are the enemy of the enemies of our queen." The bias trial lasted just 2 days. Mary was found guilty of plotting to kill Elizabeth and sentenced to death. In February 1587, Mary was given just 24-hour notice that she would be executed the next day. Now, how did Walsingham's spies find a letter by Mary that was hidden in a beer barrel? Fishy, right? Anyway, Elizabeth hesitated about signing Mary's death warrant. Eventually she did, and Mary was executed 70 miles north of London on February 8th, 1587. Mary dressed in scarlet, which was the color of martyrdom. In 1612, Mary's son, King James, and yes, that is the King James of the Bible, is now king of not just Scotland, but England and France. I guess Mary's family got what was rightfully theirs after all. By the way, Mary, King James are of Negro descent.